How much is my property worth? This is the question that every homeowner and every real estate investor asks, and it's not a simple answer. Determining what a property is truly worth is one of the most important fundamental skills you can ever acquire in real estate. It should be simple, objective, scientific even, but it's not. Despite all the online resources, all the experts, and even the seemingly limitless power of AI, understanding a property's current market value and what it will actually sell for involves a lot more than meets the eye. In this video, we're going to dispel some of the myths about determining what a property is worth, and we're going to give you some tips from the real world after having evaluated literally tens of thousands of properties and seeing what actually happens in local markets across this country to arrive at the value the market will pay and close the deal. This is one of the most valuable skills that we teach our apprentices. It can either make you a fortune or bring you to financial ruin. I'm Brian Bush with Freedom Mentor, and for nearly 20 years, our organization has coached and mentored many of America's most successful real estate investors. We've been a part of thousands of house flips, and we've helped our apprentices master valuing properties to achieve their life's goals through real estate. If you have any questions through this video, text FREEDOM to 305-315-8030 or comment below. And if the wisdom you're gaining through these videos is adding to your bottom line, be sure to like and subscribe and toggle the notifications bell to on so you can get alerted every time we bring you more. It's a very common question. How much is my property worth? We're in the technology age with endless resources available and even artificial intelligence. Determining what a property is worth should be easy, right? Unfortunately, it's not. Well, where do you begin? Most people these days start online. You can go to Zillow or Redfin, Trulia, or even Realtor.com, and you should be able to get a number, right? Yes, but wait, why don't they all match? Okay, so if we come in and type an address, we're going to go with this one. If you look at the Zillow value, it closed at $800,000 back in October of last year. The Zestimate currently it's at $799,500, so a little below what it closed at. If we actually jump over to Realtor, you're looking at a valuation at $847,000, so it's a little higher. If we go over and take a look at Redfin, that one's showing at $941,000, so tremendously higher. And then let's take a look at one more. Let's look at Trulia. And this one is coming back at what it sold for, $800,000. So we've got a low at $799,500 and a high up at $941,000, right? $142,000 swing. Obviously, if an online valuation is helpful, why is there so much variance? So clearly, if value was objective, there wouldn't be this much variance. What about AI? Won't the power of artificial intelligence make valuing a property all the more objective? Well, the biggest challenge is when a property is unique. Not every property is in a cookie-cutter neighborhood with dozens to compare to. There are a lot of property variables that AI won't know. Odd layouts, overly customized finishes, being overbuilt for the neighborhood. Drawbacks to the location, like train tracks or power lines.
Did you live under power lines as a kid or something? Why?
Or a bus stop at the end of the block. It could be as simple as the direction the property faces. That old tree was finally taken down for a better view, but now the sun's creating new problems all afternoon. Perhaps it's really a 2-bedroom instead of a 3. Maybe it has an extra bath that wasn't included in the records. What about the quality of the school district?
The Derek Zoolander Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good.
There are so many nuances with properties that are considered outliers that AI unfortunately doesn't know. To dive into more of the unique outliers that definitely make it harder to value a property and can cost you lots of money, Devin has a great video, 10 hidden factors that can destroy your property value. Now, what if we go to the tax assessment for the property? I mean, that's what the government says it's worth and taxes you on annually. That must be more accurate, right? Typically, that's not the case, even when they label it an appraised value or market value, because thankfully, they don't show up each year to tour your property and update their measurements and specs and assess the condition. But that means the tax value is the result of a formula applied to the whole area that gets adjusted annually or every few years. And if you think it's too high, you protest your taxes. But realistically, there are a lot of homeowners that get that notification of a higher assessed value, have no idea it may be well over the amount they could actually sell it for, and so instead of protesting, they're going to dinner to celebrate. Obviously, the government wants to collect as much in taxes as possible, so there's no incentive for them not to assign a higher value. So you really can't rely on the tax valuation. Besides online options, many prudent buyers and sellers are going to talk to a real estate agent. And agents often provide a comparative market analysis, or CMA, to show prospective clients what the property may be worth. The CMA relies on information from the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS, which is a local database of all properties, both for sale and that have sold, and participating agents and appraisers have exclusive access to that information. It's really the coveted data that is most heavily relied on in valuing a property. So contacting an agent with that access certainly makes sense. But keeping in mind, you contacted a salesperson that wants your business and may or may not have a lot of knowledge and experience in your local sales area. Did the agent visit the property? Do they know the area, the build construction, the current condition, and the neighborhood specifically? All those pieces will absolutely impact arriving at a reasonable range of value, much less a very accurate number. And again, as a salesperson, the agent may lean toward the side of the higher end of the range in an effort to encourage the client's business. I had an agent on one of my first investment properties tell me it should sell for at least $90,000 once it's fixed up. Now note, she didn't participate in the local MLS. She was old school, just kind of knew the area. She'd been active there for decades. So I rehabbed the property as recommended, but when it came time to sell, the most I could get for the property was just $70,000. And as you probably guessed, the agent wasn't there offering to make up the $20,000 difference. So be sure to scrutinize any CMA you receive from an agent. Really probe into their assumptions as well as their experience with the local area, not to mention their success there. Great agents have a track record of success they're proud of, and they certainly know their own sales stats, and they don't mind sharing them. How many properties did they sell last month, last quarter, and last year? What percentage of initial list price do they get their clients? What is their average days on market before a contract? Ask these kinds of questions, and if the agent is a deer in headlights, you should definitely take that into consideration in relying on the information they're presenting you. Outside an agent, buyers and sellers go to an appraiser. An appraiser is a licensed professional that is paid to determine the market value of a property. They do so using market data in comparison to the subject property, and their data comes almost exclusively from the MLS. Appraisers use comparable sales or comps from around the property to arrive at a value by sales comparison. Note, they can be hired directly or by an owner or buyer if they're seeking to understand value, but when a mortgage loan is involved, the lender works through an independent third party called an appraisal management company, or AMC, to ensure there's no influence by lenders on the appraisal. Now, keep in mind, an appraisal is an opinion of value, and it can be very much influenced by the requirements of the AMC. For example, if an AMC directed that comps should be no more than 3 to 6 months old, but could go out as far as in distance as needed to identify like-kind sales, as opposed to setting a limitation that constricted distance to a quarter mile or within the subdivision, but allowed for sales much further back in time, you can see how an appraiser's valuation may well differ with that of another appraiser, simply based on the comps they were able to use. There's also a bias to be considered when the appraiser knows the price on the contract, which they always do. And of course, there's typically pressure from all parties involved for the property to appraise. So not exactly a totally blind objective valuation. For more on appraisals, check out Phil's video, 3 Myths of Real Estate Appraisals. Again, the appraisal is an opinion of value, albeit a very educated one. The better your appraiser knows the area and the more factual data they have, both about the property and the comps available, the more accurate their estimate can be. That all said, the older and more unique a property is, especially in an area with limited sales activity, and that appraiser has a lot more variables to take into consideration. We had an apprentice sell a property recently that appraised at $150,000 when the highest the market would bring was just $92,000. He still made a decent profit, but it sure is tough to take an offer at a much lower value after months on the market when you have a much higher appraisal in hand. So as you can see, there's a lot more to determining what a property is worth than meets the eye. And if you're trying to make tough decisions like whether to sell currently or whether to pursue an investment property or whether you should make improvements to your property and what would it sell for once you do, this skill will make all the difference. So how do you do it? You start by getting the right data. As we covered, there's no shortage of data available online, and AI brings a whole new level of potential. But again, despite the powerful tools available, aggregating and processing tons of data from a myriad of resources, keep in mind that accuracy is critical, and that's even harder if you're in a non-disclosure state. We need data quality more than data quantity. And since most buyers need loans, and the banks that provide those loans rely on appraisals, and appraisers rely on data from the MLS, hands down, you must have access to the actual MLS data, comps from your local MLS. If you're not using direct MLS comps, it would be like not having glasses. You're always going to be unclear and groping in the dark. There are a few workarounds available, and we have some for our apprentices, but do not underestimate this step. Next, you have to account for any outliers. Anything and everything unique about the property, the location, the size, its age, any functional obsolescence, and of course the current condition. You should be considering the neighborhood, demographics, employment, crime, and the quality of the school district.
What is this? How can we be expected to teach children to learn how to read if they can't even fit inside the building?
These are all noted in the appraisal, and you need to know how to make proper adjustments accordingly. We have an apprentice in Wisconsin that just sold a property he renovated that didn't have a basement, and that factor alone accounted for a $40,000 difference in what he could get for the property otherwise. Another apprentice in Missouri sold a property earlier this year that lacked any covered parking. The only option was parking at the curb in the front and then climbing steep steps. And there was no rear access remedy. That's not an easy to quantify adjustment because it's an X factor. Some buyers really want to protect their car or just not get wet when it rains. So that means your pool of buyers goes down, and that introduces a much bigger challenge in selling a property. Finally, you have to narrow in on the right comps and adjustments to accurately estimate what the market will pay for your property. You're pouring through the right comps, comparing what other buyers have paid, and considering the active competition as well. And you want to consider whether to sell as is or if making repairs or improvements will be worthwhile. This is the hardest part to master. So looking at the property we did earlier, we'll jump in and see that this is, in this tool, shown as a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 4651 square feet. You see that it was estimated back in August at $923. It sold 2 months later at just $800. It was on the market for 112 days until it actually closed. If we look at the photos, you'll see what pops up. This property was actually in pretty rough shape when it was purchased. There's a creek behind it, obviously needed quite a bit of work and was fully remodeled. But you'll see there's quite a bit of work to be done. It backs up to this creek, which is not direct water access. A little better view here. You can see this is the remodeled property, that creek. This is the intracoastal. But the big challenge on this property, it does not have direct access to the water. There's no boat lift or anything else included, which is definitely a negative. Realtor shows this property at $848. If you go over to Redfin, you'll actually see they're up at $941. If we jump over to the MLS, you'll see from the listing here that this property, again, matches up in terms of the specs. It was actually just on the market for 75 days for 2.5 months before it went under contract. It was originally listed at $850, and they dropped it, of course, and sold at $800. So if we go to look at the photos for this one, you'll see that the property was fully remodeled. Did a great job, it appears. really brought the property up significantly, which jumped the value quite a ways. You'll see here that the property again backs up to this creek, but it's not access for boat or anything else, which is again a negative for the property. So let's go back to the MLS and actually pull up some comps. We'll go ahead and look at the last 6 months within a quarter mile and see if that brings anything up. Brings up a few. You can tell here the square footage is a lot less. Let's go ahead and go out a little further. We'll go out to half a mile and see if that gets us a lot more. It does. It gets us out to 19, but if you look at the square footage, again, nothing anywhere close to what we have at 4651. So let's go ahead and go out further in time and see what we can pull up here. So that's going to get us 34. If we go ahead and again adjust for square footage, you'll see this is the property that actually sold. We've got a few, but again, we're really not getting too close. If we're plus or minus 10%, that puts us still above 4,000, which this is well smaller, but sold for a higher price. Let's go ahead and make one more adjustment on the comps we're going to use. We're going to stay no more than a year back, but we're going to go further out in distance. We're also going to add some changes here. Let's go with 4150, and we'll go out to 5150, which is just about plus or minus 500 square feet. And that just reduces this way down because, again, not very much in range. We'll make one more adjustment, and let's go further out in distance. Let's go out 2 miles and see what that gets us. Okay, so this is 7 comps. Again, you'll see that square footage-wise, if we look at the bedrooms, you'll see that we know we have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. So you get all the way up to 6, and yet, you know, talk about an outlier. Looks like this one. Let's go ahead and map these. Yeah, so you'll see here, here's our subject property. You're going to see these are properties on a golf course. So if you kind of start looking at any of these are going at much higher prices. You get further along the golf course as well. This one is our outlier. This one is actually a duplex, so that's not going to fit in very well. Let's see if we've got any others that we can rely on. Again, you can see the intracoastal that comes in, and the downside to this property being there's no direct water access. The creek behind it isn't very desirable. So we'll go ahead and make one more change here, and we're going to actually expand the square footage. We're going to go down to 3650 and see if that gets us a little more to work with that's usable. Added 3 more comps. Again, taking a look at that square footage, you can see that we have a couple more 4-bedrooms. These two in particular, this one went at 830, which is pretty close to what we're working with, yet considerably less in square footage. This one, a lot more. So if we actually look at each of these, let's go ahead and map these two. And then we'll go ahead and map our property as well and just see where they sit in comparison. So you'll see this property, this is the one that's pretty close to it. This is the one that's much higher. If we zoom in and see what's going on, this is a property, you can see it has a boat slip. I mean, just that direct water access is a lot more valuable. It looks like it has an enclosed indoor pool. So again, some differences in location that are going to add a lot more in value. If we go back to the other comp, let's see what this one does. This one again has access to the water, again enclosed pool, and that water access is what's making a huge difference. So you can tell here the square footage is not nearly as large. This is the one that's 3,853, so less in square footage, a little smaller, one less bath, and yet went for 30,000 more because it's on the water. So that water access is going to make a huge difference in this kind of an example. So as you can tell, determining what a property is worth requires processing a lot of the right data, accounting for outliers, and making adjustments to arrive at an accurate estimate. Keep in mind, at the end of the day, your property is worth exactly what the competing buyers in the market are willing to pay. And that typically has to be supported by the comparable sales an appraiser is willing to use. You can see this is more of an art than it is a science. But again, it's a skill you have to master to achieve consistent success in real estate. Getting this wrong can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Phil has a classic video that's phenomenal on this subject, determining property value the right way. I highly recommend you watch it to learn more. Hopefully it's becoming clear there's a lot more to determining what a property's worth than meets the eye. It's a critical skill that's fundamental to your success. Great investors master it and they thrive, but the majority of people will struggle with it, and it's one of the main reasons why they won't be as successful in real estate as they should be. Anyone can find lots of data online. There's no shortage of real estate agents in your market with MLS comps, and we can all certainly hire an appraiser. But no matter who you bring in, until those people have made their money from reselling properties that they bought with their own money, all that expert advice could be worthless. What truly matters is the people who've had to stick their neck out and put their money where their mouth is as a real estate investor. They have to be able to accurately determine what the property's worth, make all their calculations, and buy it at the right price so they can fix it up and resell it for a profit. AI can't solve this. It's a complicated subject, and it's why you need a mentor. We work with our apprentices every day to understand what properties are worth and what they'll sell for to complete successful, profitable house flips. If you want the very best in the industry helping you determine what your property's worth so that you ensure you always make a great profit, consider our apprentice program, where Phil, Devin, myself, and the rest of our team will mentor, coach, and guide you to consistent success. There's a link in the description as well as in the top right corner. And if you haven't read it already, get your free copy of our best-selling book, How to Be a Real Estate Investor. If you have any questions for us, text FREEDOM to 305-315-8030 or post a comment below. I'm Brian Bush with FreedomMentor.com. If you gain more real estate wisdom through this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.